are we looking at the evolution of Myles Lewis-Skelly as a midfielder for Arsenal, as a midfielder in his senior career, and not as a left-back, which is all we've seen him as? Few players can say they've had the debut season which Arsenal's Myles Lewis-Skelly had last season. 17 years of age, having an unbelievable performance at the Bernabeu, to the point where you're called up for the England squad and you score on your first call-up, to the point where you're almost untouchable for a title contender at 17 years of age, to the point where you only joined the team earlier on in the 2024-25 campaign and you are near enough untouchable. With being at a top club also adds the ability to lose your spot, to have immense competition, to have players who are suited for different roles, and that is what's happened this season with Ricardo Calafiori. But in actual fact, is this a transition to say that Myles Lewis-Skelly is being viewed as a midfielder, particularly with the signing of Piero Hincapié, who predominantly has been a left-back or a third centre-back in a back three for Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen? I think what we forget with Myles Lewis-Skelly is, although he was unbelievable as a left-back, this is a player who's not traditionally a left-back. We see it a lot in the modern game, with Man City especially, for example, right now. Matheus Nunes, Nico O'Reilly, two players who were not defenders by any stretch of the imagination. They're midfielders, but because they're physically adept, because they're rapid, because they're really clever and on the ball and decision-making wise, they have that spot, and that's exactly what happened with Myles Lewis-Skelly. But it's also important to note that Arsenal and Arteta have platformed players of that ilk, particularly when they first come into the squad, out wide to start with, and slowly they've been moved centrally. We're seeing it with Ethan Nwaneri right now. He's now a central player, and I think it's important to note when we talk about Lewis-Skelly's limited game time this season that actually it's because he's transitioning into a midfielder. Arsenal don't have that young up-and-coming midfielder in their ranks. They have Zubimendi, they have Rice, they have Norgard for the experience, but do they have Lewis-Skelly's profile? No, they don't. It's easy to go overboard as fans that our favourites aren't starting, but what's the actual reason? Is it because they've lost their spot, or is it simply because we're seeing a positional adaptation? So instead of seeing a lot of the narratives which are flowing around the media, or getting too caught up in our own opinions, although sometimes I think Lewis-Skelly should play and he offers so much, particularly on the ball, the way he can bait a press, the way he can change a game just by driving with the ball. But it's also important to note that